next season. The capacity was 52,888.
This is how a football club rebuilds its future without losing its soul. Everton is doing just that, and this is where legacy meets ambition, and the future rises from the water. Everton is witnessing the boldest transformations in English football in the form of Bramley-Moore Dock Stadium. And this is not just a stadium, it is a launchpad for what's coming next. Everton Football Club's identity is carved into the very streets of Liverpool, which shines in pride. Their journey began not at Goodison, but at Anfield, long before it turned red. In 1892, a rent dispute sent Everton across Stanley Park, and from that moment, Goodison Park became the beating heart of the blue half of the city. For over 130 years, that old ground held triumphs and heartbreak, legends and lifers. But time, like the tide, waits for no club. And now enters the vision, Bramley-Moore Dock. Set along Liverpool's historic waterfront, it's a place once lined with cranes, cargo ships, and coal-stained workers. Now imagine that same dock pulsing with blue lights, flags waving in the wind, and a modern football cathedral rising where warehouses once stood. That's Bramley-Moore Dock Stadium. This expansion isn't just more seats, it is the reinvention of passion. A design that merges old charm with future flair. Yes, a new chapter that doesn't break itself from the past. As fans step into this new home, they're not walking away from their history, they're carrying it forward. And what lies ahead are huge matches, international tournaments, and a future built on blue. From blue beginnings to Bramley-Moore's bold future, Everton's roots goes far deeper than the bricks of any stadium. To understand where the club is going, you have to start where it all began, right? And all of it sprouted on the uneven pitches of 19th century Liverpool, long before floodlights and modern terraces. In 1878, Everton wasn't even Everton yet, and it was St. Domingo's FC, a church team playing on a barren land near Prince's Park. That's right, muddy boots, leather balls, and local lads playing for pride and not for pay. But word just spread too fast, and crowds began to gather in front of these young minds set in the ground. And soon, the club needed a real home. And that home became Anfield. Back then, Anfield was not red, it was royal blue. Everton built stands, drew crowds, and gave the city its first proper taste of big match football. But by 1892, a clash over rent with landlord John Orrell forced a move. And it resulted in fallout where Everton packed their kits and marched across Stanley Park. And in their place, a brand new club came. And guess who? Yes, Liverpool FC and Everton had to find their halt at Goodison Park. Surrounded by streets, it became not just a ground, but a cultural corner. Fans walked from shipyards and factories with oil-stained boots, ready to play their battle. And from the moment they moved in, Everton began stacking silver like league titles, FA Cups, and unforgettable players for a lifetime. But what mattered more than medals was meaning. The royal blue was not just a colour, it was a working-class badge of pride. Through every chant and cheer, Everton carved a legacy of their own. It was like Everton finding its spiritual anchor at Goodison Park. What began as a relocation evolved into something far deeper, like a home in the truest sense. If the early years had shaped Everton's identity, then Goodison was the core and soul of it. Goodison Park was a living and breathing monument to the resilience Everton has ever shown. The pitch lay in the middle of streets where children would pass balls off while pensioners sat on doorsteps, listening to radios and watching the crowds flow in like a tide into the park. Inside, it was raw and honest football. And above all stood the memory of Dixie Dean, whose 60-goal season in 1927-28 remains untouchable. Over the years, Goodison was the battleground for more than goals. More than that, it became a place of community action, like hosting charity drives during the miners' strike and opening doors to food banks. It was a place where hardship met hope every other Saturday. But as the Premier League evolved, Goodison began to show its age. Shining stadiums with much more impressive features started rising across the country. Even though Goodison's character remained, the concrete began to crack. Facilities lagged while space remained the same, and that is when modern matchday demands became difficult to meet. But despite those limitations, Everton stayed loyal to its people. The idea of leaving such a historic ground felt unthinkable for many because every stand and every squeaky seat held memories. Goodison was a tradition by now, dressed up in blue and bone, but it was time for the club to begin to dream once more. The heartbeat remained strong, but the club knew the geography had to evolve to compete with the giants. By the 2010s, the writing was on the wall at Goodison. Everton needed a vision more than sentiment, and in 2013, under Farhad Moshiri's guidance, that vision started to take form. After years of starts, the focus shifted from King's Dock to a place few imagined. That is Bramley-Moore Dock. It was no pristine canvas or previous victories. Bramley-Moore was a dock on Liverpool's northern waterfront, which is home to pigeons, rusted cranes, and the ghosts of industrial sacrifices. But where others saw decay, Everton saw possibility, and the club pictured a new heartbeat rising from the bones of this forgotten basin. The process was challenging as they held global design contests. They brought in marine archaeologists to study sunken relics and consulted heritage experts to honor the dock's UNESCO-listed status. Flood defenses were mapped, and they had to redirect the entire canal system. But slowly, the transformation began, and in 2019, the first foundations were finished. In 2020, ground officially broke for milestones to achieve. And it was not just about football, but it was an urban revival. A project that promised a new breath and life into North Liverpool. It aimed to connect the city's past with its promise. Brick by brick, Everton began building a statement of identity, ambition, and community. And most importantly, this was not about leaving Goodison behind, but it was about carrying its soul forward into a place that could hold both history and horizon. From dockyard to architectural dreams, Bramley-Moore was the next page, one that would be turned in steel and electric blue light. By 2021, the skeleton of the new stadium was almost done, and it stood proud against Liverpool's skyline. A 52,888-seat Coliseum, rooted in history but aiming to reach forward. The design was not too flashy for the sake of it. It was intentional, and every line, every beam, every panel paid tribute to the area's industrial bones. Red brick matched those old warehouses, while steel ribs echoed the dock's machinery. One stand was left open, framing views of the river and sky. The scoreboard wall was lowered, not just for aesthetics, but to honor historic sightlines along the waterfront. Even the pitch sat slightly below water level, keeping the dock itself in mind. Under the seats, Everton embedded the community. There were educational spaces, music venues, volunteering hubs, and cafes. You could walk through and find murals of Merseyside life, art from local schools, and echoes of Goodison's legends. And it was in early 2025 the stadium pulsed with life. The first few matches were electric. Fans in royal blue streamed in, with their eyes wide open at the new cathedral that still felt like home. Pre-match tours sold out like nothing else, while drone footage went viral. The only question now is, how far will it take them? Comment your thoughts below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more of football.